Hi again. This is the second part of our site modelling and rendering exercise or example. We've got the shape of the ground around our site done, and we've lifted the plot up to the height we need and sketched in the line, the shape of the driveway here. I'm going to put these lines onto a more sensible layer. So I'm going to change these onto 3D site pave and start losing a few of the bits of 2D information just to declutter a bit. Okay, we can get rid of these. Okay, I don't need to see these spot heights anymore, so I'm going to get rid of those as well. And the node points have kind of done their job as well. I'm just going to lose those. I need to keep the contours just for a wee while yet. These lines want to be at the same height as the paving level, so we could use the -ch and move them upwards, or you could change the UCS, change the coordinate system. So I'm just going to turn that to the front coordinate system and then move these lines by, it was 4.5 meters that we moved the ground up by. So make sure ortho's on so you get a vertical lift, and the distance 4500. Okay, always do little checks as well, just make sure that things are in line. You can do a distance from here to here, and we should get a 0 in the y direction. Delta y 0. Okay, just because the UCS is round at that angle at the moment. I'm going to put the UCS back to the world. Using the UCS really unlocks a lot of power in the software. So on this 3D site ground layer, we're going to triangulate the surface now, because there's no even slope here. Our site is kind of crossing over the contours. You really have to kind of take control and do this yourself. Okay, so what we want to do is kind of connect everything up that we can. And for your object snaps, okay, we don't need center now. Midpoint's probably not advisable, but endpoint and nearest will probably be the most helpful. Endpoint and nearest. Okay, and this can be done in the plan view. Okay, so let's start up in this top corner. We want to triangulate this with as few triangles as possible, but making sure we pick up the relevant positions. Okay, so I'm looking for the endpoint, so just clicking on here, I just need to kind of judge where the endpoints are. So there's one about here, there's an endpoint of line there, and then we've got the corner of the site here. So using the 3D face command, 3F, we'll put in a triangular face. Endpoint to endpoint to endpoint. Enter to finish. Enter to stop the command. Enter to bring back the command. Another triangle now. Endpoint, endpoint, endpoint. Enter 3 times so that you can use the command again. Okay, we've not got so many endpoints available now. We need to pick up on the corner of the site. We don't necessarily need to pick up on the contour position. Okay, so we'll kind of take control ourselves here. So let's put in a triangle from endpoint to nearest to nearest. Enter 3 times. Okay, endpoint, endpoint, endpoint. Enter 3 times. Okay, this position here could be a 4-sided 3D face, but if I were you, I would stick with 3-sided. You then can tell where the breakpoints are going to be in a slope. So let's see what that looks like in 3D. Bring it over and do regular shades so you can check how the the tessellation is going. Okay, so we can see here that our site is cutting in to the land at this point. Okay, so our boundary is a fair bit higher than the land. Okay, you can work in 3D if you wish. Okay, but remember to try and break things up. It's not absolutely advisable. It's not really advisable to work in a shaded mode. Things can sometimes get picked wrong. So 2D wireframe is a bit safer. Okay, and you spin your model around and check what's happening. So we've got a fair bit of cutting into the ground at this point. Go near that. I don't want to make too much work for myself, but I also want to triangulate this in an efficient way. Okay, let's have a look at that shaded. Okay, you can see from the colour change, there's a slight colour change there, that we've got, you know, differences in slope gradients. Take one about halfway. Into the corner of the site, and then over to the road, to the back of the pavement. So how's it looking? So they're now starting. It's now starting. The land of where the building is higher than the land around it. Okay, we get a more interesting situation here. So let's go to the contour. Let's take the line to the contour and back up to the side. Okay, and we can see there that that's quite steep. Okay, let's do that again. We'll go right to the corner of the site this time. And then we'll start coming to the boundary, and this is a position that's going to need our intervention. Okay, you can see there's a bit of a kind of a kink in the land there. Let's keep doing that. We've got a position here where the contour actually crosses the site. Now that's one that I should have picked up already, actually. So let's just take away these two. Okay, and draw a line on top of here, trim that, and just seeing where that occurs. So it's right back here. So instead of going, not quite right. I'll go back to 2D wireframe. Sometimes things don't behave correctly when you're in a shaded view. That's better. Okay, that's what I meant about making sure you're in a shaded view. So there is a little bit of a height difference there that we should be taking account of. Okay, so the boundary has a little dip in it at that point. This comes across back to the road. Okay, so back correct now. So stick our 3D faces on again. Similar pattern. Okay, just make sure everything's meeting at the same point there. Point now. Every time you do this, it will be different. I can guarantee you. You'll probably never do the same triangulation twice. It's just the nature of the little task. Okay, we'll put some big triangles here to fill in the last of the space. Now I don't know if you noticed, but I'm drawing the triangles anti-clockwise, and that's so that they're facing upwards. If I drew them clockwise, they'd be facing downwards, which doesn't help the 3D Studio a lot. Okay, we'll have a look at the shading there, and you can see we've got a kind of a bit of a kink in the ground here. It's a bit uncomfortable. You probably wouldn't, you know, make the soil that shape. So really we want an even slope going from the site down to the site boundary. So I'm just going to draw a line across there. Okay, so that's the actual slope of the ground there. So what we could do is pick up all this junction of vertices and bring them onto this line, and that would get rid of this change in steep, flat, which is what we've got. So you can see there's a bit of a depression there that's looking a bit strange. Okay, I'll switch off the contours layer and then back to 2D wireframe for this so that you can grab the edges properly. And then it's the stretch command. You grab with the crossing window, enter, from end point to anywhere on that line. So the nearest point would be fine. Delete the line, and then compare the shirt surface now. We should see a lot smoother colour change. Okay, there's no difference in contrast. Okay, so that's a bit more kind of realistic way of dealing with the land in that position. Okay, then we want to fill in the ground at the building, so we'll use 3D Site Pave. Now I said that this was twisted, so model it with that in mind. If you decide where the break point is in that shape. Okay, otherwise the software will decide for you, and it might give you unsatisfactory results. What we want to do here is make sure that we kind of join all the corners, and that way we get better welding of objects to objects. So when you 3D face this, pick up on the end points of all the faces. Okay, there'll be some fairly big ones now. Bear in mind this is all flat where the building is. And we've got two more. We've got one to pick up just here, and then a final triangle into the corner of the site. Okay, so I make it look maybe a bit easier than it is. It takes a bit of practice to do this, but we want the roads and the curbs now. Now we don't want to model everything here, so what I'm going to do is kind of trim these off. Okay, so I'll just draw a polyline perpendicular to here. Okay, same with this end. And I'll just trim these down. Just a bit unnecessary work for what we're doing. Okay, and we'll do simple pavement and curbs here. I'm not going to do a dropped curb at the site access. It takes a little bit too much time to model. Okay, so we'll do crude curbs and everything here. So let's do the road surface first. So we want a 3D road surface layer and 3D face. Okay, now move that downwards. So ortho is on, set your direction, and we'll go down. The height of a curve is 125 millimeters. Okay, now change to your curb layer, 3D curb, and we'll put a very thin 3D face, to the other. Do the same on the other side. Could have copied it. And lastly, a pavement layer, 3D face again. This time we need to pick up on these triangulation points. Just so everything's joined properly. Very thin, long triangle up to this point, and finish off with a big rectangular 3D surface. Go for a four-sided one there, and that's all our surface is done.